What if George Washington had asked you to pledge your support for the American Revolution? Would you? What if Copernicus, Darwin, or Galileo asked you to pledge your support for the scientific revolution? Would you? What if I could prove to you that there was a connection between the French Revolution, American Revolution, and scientific revolution in the 1700s and the cultural, scientific, economic, and technological revolutions that have emerged around the world in the 21st century? A connection that proved history was repeating itself. Would you pledge your support? Good afternoon. My name is Mike Brockman, and I am the author of the Internet Revolution Manifesto. I appreciate your taking the time to review this Indiegogo campaign. While it's obvious that George Washington, Copernicus, Darwin, and Galileo are not alive today, after reviewing the talking points in this video in the executive summary, I am convinced that you will realize that your pledges will result in the creation of 3 documents, not unlike those that were created by Copernicus, Darwin, and Galileo, that will completely transform your notions of culture, science, economics, and technology. A very ambitious goal, to say the least, but I am confident that by the end of this presentation, you will not only agree with this statement, but you will feel compelled to get actively involved in the greatest revolution in the history of mankind. After spending the last 2 decades studying the world's greatest cultural, scientific, economic, and technological revolutions, there are 4 things I can tell you to a scientific certainty. There have been 4 previous information revolutions in the history of mankind: speech, writing, printing, and mass media. Each resulted in a period of cultural, scientific, economic, and technological chaos and transformation, also known as a revolution. And each of these revolutions was in direct proportion to the speed and scale of the communication platform. With that being said, with the invention of the Internet, I propose that we are on the verge of a cultural, scientific, economic, and technological revolution of biblical proportions. I propose to you, which should come as no surprise, that history is repeating itself. Basically, I am proposing that with the introduction of the Internet, we are now experiencing a period of cultural, scientific, economic, and technological revolution, just like those that accompanied the invention of the printing press in the 1700s. While Copernicus and Galileo were intent on defining the structure and function of the universe, in the 21st century, scientists are intent on defining the structure and function of the God particle. And as for cultural revolutions, my proposal is that the trigger for all cultural revolutions throughout history, the agricultural revolution, for example, is scarcity and fiscal crisis. I have provided a copy of the description of the French Revolution on Wikipedia for your review. While we've changed the names of the 1% from big religion and the aristocracy in the 17th century to big government, big business, and big media in the 21st, the motivations for revolution have remained the same. With over 2 decades of research into the world's greatest revolutions under my belt, I beg you to consider that mankind is in desperate need of a paradigm shift. Throughout history, the response of the 1%, big empires and big religion, to scarcity and crisis has been to reduce the demands of the 99% through genocide and war. Unfortunately, their final solutions never solved anything. In the last 2 centuries alone, over 200 million human beings have died at the hands of the 1%. As history clearly shows, scarcity and fiscal crisis have never been solved by anything other than revolution. The agricultural revolution resulted in the mass production of food, the scientific revolution, the mass production of knowledge, and the industrial revolution, the mass production of industrial capacity. So, is history repeating itself? One need look no farther than the bookshelves of Amazon.com to discover that we are facing a worldwide shortage of oil, minerals, and water that has created a fiscal crisis. And once again, we have gone into final solution mode. We have entered into what some are calling the age of war. We have declared a forever war on war, terrorism, religion, drugs, moms, bugs, cancer, the middle class, science, child predator, obesity, allergies, and even autistic children. During the tumultuous 60s, soul singer Edward Starr posed the question, war, what is it good for? Apparently, the 1% thinks it's good for absolutely everything. Knute Rockne, legendary coach of the Green Bay Packers, once said, "The Green Bay Packers never lost a single game. We just ran out of time." I am here today to try and convince my fellow Americans that we are losing each and every war we are currently fighting, and we are rapidly running out of time and money. Please take a moment to revisit Amazon.com with me, and you will find hundreds of books on the rise and fall of hundreds of empires throughout history. And in each case, with a little bit of research, you will find that right before their fall, each and every one of them had the world's largest, most powerful, and most expensive standing armies. I know how to save America from becoming the next victim of the 7 deadly sins: lust, gluttony, greed, sloth, wrath, envy, and pride. But it will take a social network of millions, and that is where you come in. I need you to pledge your support for the Make Revolution, Not War Revolution today. The Make Revolution, Not War Revolution is the realization, backed by thousands of years of historical evidence, modern-day mathematics, and common sense, that suggests the solution to the current worldwide scarcity of resources and fiscal crisis is to make revolution, not war. The Make Revolution, Not War Revolution is not an anti-war movement. Let me be very clear about that. It's an anti-anti pro-solution movement. The essence of this revolution is that we need to begin to mass produce cultural, scientific, economic, and technological revolutions that will result in either the mass production of the resources that have become scarce, or we need to invent new resources. We have launched a $500,000 flexible funding campaign on Indiegogo today so that we can get to work right away on the infrastructure of the communication platform that we believe will support this generation's cultural creatives, scientists, economists, and technology icons. With $150,000, we will create the next killer app. This app will take advantage of a patent-pending economic and business process optimization engine. At a cost of $75,000 each, we will create a ready-for-prime-time iBook version of the Internet Revolution Manifesto and On the Origin of Revolutions working papers. The Internet Revolution Manifesto will provide the emotional intelligence, the 7 values and beliefs of highly successful revolutionaries, if you will, to help make the paradigm shift from war to revolution. On the Origin of Revolutions will provide the intellectual intelligence, or IQ, necessary to launch the next scientific revolution. And finally, the documentary will provide an integrated e-learning platform to document and mentor cultural, scientific, economic, and technological revolutionaries from around the world. After all, revolutions are all about tearing down walls, the Berlin Wall and the Great Firewall of China, for example. The Make Revolution, Not War Revolution is truly a revolution without borders. So now that you have the budget, let's talk about the return on your investment. This plot of the worldwide GDP per capita was developed by world-renowned economist Angus Madison. It clearly shows how the growth in GDP throughout history can be correlated with the 3 previous periods of worldwide revolution. Following these mathematical principles, it stands to reason that your pledges to this campaign will likely produce a return on investment in excess of $200 to $300 trillion in the next 100 years alone. The fall of big government, big business, and big media will produce an even bigger return on your investment. In closing, I have put together a 25-page executive summary that you can download right now for $5. Inside, you will find that I have solved the mystery of the rise and fall of history's Goliath-like empires. I now know why history repeats itself, and more importantly, as we find ourselves facing down World War III, I know that we have a choice. History, in this case, does not have to repeat itself. We can and should choose to make revolution, not war. This generation of mankind has a rendezvous with the biggest revolution in the brief but explosive history of mankind. I have returned from a 20-year quest for the Holy Grail, the governing dynamics of the individual and group minds of man. I have returned with 2 working papers, the Internet Revolution Manifesto and On the Origin of Revolutions. The Internet Revolution Manifesto will provide mankind with the emotional intelligence that will be necessary to make the paradigm shift from war to revolution. And On the Origin of Revolutions will provide the intellectual intelligence that will be necessary to understand that all insanely great ideas, and indeed cultural revolutions, must eventually undergo a scientific revolution. Please help me turn the insanely great ideas in these 2 working papers into Mr. Brockman's opus, and then make a commitment to help me orchestrate the Make Revolution, Not War Revolutions. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed revolutionaries can resolve the scarcity of resources that now face mankind. Indeed, revolution, not war, is the only thing that ever has.